What's up,
Hello.
everyone? Thanks for tuning in to the live stream. Obviously, this is Eric, Samir, and this is Tanmay, our amazing
Hello.
collaborator. He was the vision for this video, and this is just the beginning of all the videos that we're doing. There's a larger filmic piece of this record. Is obviously called American Bollywood, so there's a lot happening. I'm going to scroll down to some of your questions here.
All right. Yeah, if anyone has questions, hello.
We missed you too.
What Dawson Hobbs, what made you choose to split the album into 4 parts, and what significance does that hold for you?
Yeah, so the album is told in 4 acts. It kind of mirrors an Indian mythology called the Mahabharata, which is from the Bhagavad Gita. And it tells the story of these 5 brothers who essentially are kicked out of their kingdom and then come back into their kingdom. And it's told in origin, exile, battle, and denouement. There are 4 parts of that story. And we kind of ported that to 2022, as well as the immigrant story and our story as a band. So we figured it would make the most sense to tell it in acts.
Let's see. Shall I go back up and catch some of these earlier ones? Okay, that's one. We had. I literally don't understand what's going on. Who's the girl swinging in the video? Samir replaces her in the end. Let's see. When you released an old Jason, how is it starting? What was the inspiration behind American Bollywood?
Well, American Bollywood was just some people already cited it in the comments, and we'd kind of been writing a record. As soon as Mirror Master was over, we never really stopped writing. And so we just kind of kept writing. He wrote maybe, 60, 70 songs, and we were just kind of trying to find great songs, and we didn't really have a concept. And then all of a sudden, American Bollywood came to me as just a great phrase that really encapsulates my experience being an Indian American and experience of not fitting in, but have creating my own place that is American Bollywood. And so with that, the band, we all kind of worked together to essentially recraft the record. We did a lot of like soundscape stuff. I did some found recordings in India, and we just kind of went down the rabbit hole of archival music and kind of figuring out what we wanted to make this sound like. And we also brought Tanmay on board to be a big part of this vision. So Tanmay, do you want to say hi to everyone?
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks for being here, and thanks for watching the film. Yeah, and I think as Samir was saying, it's a lot. I think American Bollywood is a lot to do with the immigration story of like a lot of South Asian families who've kind of been here, and and the first generation immigrants who kind of made the first sacrifices to kind of leave their homes behind and come to a place like America and then resettle just for the most part for like the better future of them and their children. And I think it's a homage to them for us in many ways.
Mm-hmm.
There's a question here from Nemo who's asking, why was it important to bring Tanmay in on visuals? They're stunning. And how did you guys meet? Love the video and song.
Thank you.
So yeah, Tanmay is an extremely talented cinematographer and creator, artist. And we actually had met him on tour. We were in Europe right before COVID hit, the end of 2019. And we brought out one of our great friends on tour, or The Molecule, a great band. And Tanmay was friends with them, and he was actually on tour with them. And when we first met each other, it was just kind of like this immediate bonding. Obviously, the fact that we're both Indian and we're in this different place, and we just saw the talent that he had and the ability to make great stuff in a very short amount of time. And we just figured that he'd be the perfect person to do this. And so I think the band had been talking about it. Even my wife has been mentioning a lot of the stuff that you'd been doing, and I figured we'd reach out. And for all those who are wondering, this is our band house studio. We purchased this house together as a band, and it's essentially been our home away from home. And Tanmay has also been away from his home in India, and he's been living here at our band house, and it's truly become our tree house.
Yeah. Someone asked if there's going to be a vinyl for the album,
Eric, do
and
you
the
wanna answer
answer
that?
is yes. We're working on the design right now, and I think I could say that it's coming probably early next year, but we're very excited about that. And where are your wine glasses? Well, these guys have them right here. What you drinking?
We're just drinking some anonymous red.
Some grape juice.
You know, it's just it's time to celebrate. This has been a record that we've worked on for, you know, about 4 years at this point, and to finally see the first act come out, it's been something that we've been envisioning and planning and dreaming about for a long time. So this is a celebration for us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So someone asked if there's going to be in the open versions, and there will most definitely be in the open versions in the future. If you all don't know what that is, that's kind of our series where we perform the songs on our records outdoors and in just like places that landscapes that inspire us in a more stripped back style. And then someone asked, what song is the most personal song on the album and why?
I mean, I'd say American Bollywood is up there. It's, you know, in a lot of, you know, each one of our records, there's been that song that kind of points the way towards what the theme would be. You know, with the second record, that was Mind Over Matter. With third record, I think it was probably America. Fourth record, it was Superposition. And I mean, regardless of, you know, how the world sees it, it's amazing that you all love it. This was just a song that was kind of told the trailer. It was like, essentially, I thought of it as, if we're telling a story as a film, that this is like the movie trailer for the record and about what's about to unfold.
Yeah, this song absolutely opened the floodgates of inspiration for this record when Samir showed us the song that he had written. I just remember getting chills, and it just kind of became very clear to all of us that this was the direction in which we needed to take the album, and we're very, very excited and proud that we went in that direction, and it went as deep as we could possibly go with it. Did you jump in the water?
So that shoot was crazy. Tanmay can probably elaborate, but we essentially have been doing this more or less self-funded. A lot of people have maybe noticed we have a new record company, which is our own record company, Jungle Youth Records, which we're very proud of. And we believe in this so much that, you know, we just kind of fronted the money before we could find a partner. We ended up figuring all that stuff out, but it was a run and gun situation. We went to the Salton Sea. We filmed a bunch of things in a bunch of different places, mostly guerrilla stuff. We filmed a lot of this stuff like in the earliest hours of the morning, way late into the night, and just completely delirious. So
yeah, it was a pretty crazy journey, because I think like Samir was kind enough to kind of like, you know, like bring me on this and then share his vision for this entire album. And I was in India, and Samir and the entire band was in the US, and we were having conversations about what the themes what the whole like the meaning is, and like what it means to them. And then we just had like a few days to prep, and we just sort of kind of had the entire like intentions. And I think that's sort of like what really powered the entire journey for us. And the process was in itself just finding everything on the spot for the most of it. And it was really like, yeah, it was fun.
It was a very inspiring process. And I would say it inspired us as well in the final kind of moments of writing the record as well, because we were close, but we hadn't completely finished the album. As we were doing the filming, we still had some to go. And so once we did the filming, there was this new inspiration that came from doing the filming, and from Tanmay and these amazing creative people that we worked with, that actually really inspired like some, you know, finalization of some of the songs and lyrics and that. Let's see. Why YTG has always been a fantastic representation of the American melting pot. How does that experience influence this album from an emotional standpoint? How do you bond over this shared experience?
It's a great question.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of this is kind of reframing, our story. We were raised in Orange County, and a lot of people think of Orange County as a predominantly white conservative place. But we grew up in a town called Irvine, and it's a melting pot, and a complete melting pot. A lot of people come there for a great public education, and it's kind of this place um, where you obviously aware of social constructs and like the way that cultures differ and vary, but it didn't really like guide what we were doing. And so when we first started as a band, I mean, it wasn't a conscious thing that we're gonna all like try and be from different places. It just happened to be that we were all a part of the music scene, and we were just a snapshot of that city in America, a microcosm of this country. And I think it took us traveling, growing together to really understand how we were different in a lot of ways from, I think, what people are used to seeing in the alternative music space. And emotionally, I think it just allows us to be open and connect with each other's stories and understand each other's stories. And, this story was something that was very personal to me, and Eric and, everyone else, Francois and Jake and Payam, really kind of took this story in and wanted to like understand it. And, having conversations about, we know each other so well. We're like, brothers, we've known each other for a long time. We know all of our stories, and that's kind of bled into our music, and it's bled into the way that, we just live our lives. So
So that couple people asked, and someone named Nick Drake, which is an amazing rest in peace folk musician. So if that's your real name, that's pretty epic. Where did those suits come from? Our good friend, new friend Qasim, who Tanmay introduced us to.
Qasim, if you're in the comments, hello.
Yes, he killed it, and he found us these amazing old suits at this kind of costume rental place. Yeah. And he was able to find the right sizes for all of us without any of us being there, and somehow it just magically worked.
And so much of this record is about like melding East and West, and that's like music, that's fashion, that's film. And these suits are like vintage French suits from like, I think the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
And that style, for a lot of the Indian people who maybe Indian Americans or Indians who grew up watching Bollywood or just like Indian fashion, like those 70s style French suits, or like the frills and like the bell bottoms, it's a big part of Bollywood. It's a big part of like the fashion of cinema and film in India. And so there's like this really cool place where Qasim managed to find that thread that we've been trying to search for in our music too.
Let's see. Was it? Okay. Let's see. Can you tell us a little bit about what makes the other acts different from this one?
Mm-hmm.
Does it tell different stories?
Yeah, so we kind of touched upon that a little bit already. This is origins, and then there's exile, and there's battle, and then there's denouement. And so this first act is most definitely our origin story in a lot of ways. The lyrical themes, I think, are really youthful and hopeful, taking spiritualism to its like heights of positivity. And then there are also some moments that are kind of like true to form, Young the Giant, kind of harkening back to some of our old school times. And each act does tell a unique story sonically, tells a different story in terms of the immigrant experience and how we've moved forward with exile and battle and denouement. It tells a story of this band. It tells a story of just us as a society dealing with COVID, going through all this stuff. So there's a lot of variety on this record. I think for those fans who who Young the Giant are, you guys know that we have a lot of sonic diversity in what we do, and so just expect a lot of craziness. There's a lot of stuff that's gonna happen.
Let's see. There's so many here. How do you guys compare this album to your previous albums? I personally feel like this album, I feel like we went deeper on this album than we ever have in terms of kind of finding a thematic through line and really going as deep as we possibly could, sonically, lyrically, just in every way. But I do think in a way that it almost embodies everywhere that we've been previously, and moves the needle forward, while also like kind of paying homage to where we've been in our previous records.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, there's most definitely a sonic through line, and every instrument and every part, we kind of poured over and wanted to make it sound like the influence of Indian classical and Bollywood and Carnatic and all sorts of different diasporic influences, in how that's influenced Western music in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, the 2000s. And we've kind of like taken that and run with it.
This is a question, and I saw a question earlier that was asking about what was the art influence, or like what was, what influenced maybe the film landscape and the art. And then also this question says any Bollywood movies that influence the songwriting. So I feel like that those two kind of ideas could, be something to discuss.
I mean, Tanmay is to credit most definitely for the vision of this. I mean, I wanted him, we entrusted him to come up with that vision. In terms of Bollywood, and there's a lot of old school Bollywood, Mohammed Rafi, Asha Bhosle. There's like a lot of old writers, and there's also the sound of A.R. Rahman in the 90s and 2000s. That's been a big part of this, but
Yeah, I think that I feel like the songs in themselves tell so much like of a story, that I think it was pretty easy for me to actually take what they already had, which in itself was a complete version of, like an ABC storyline, and to sort of then take it into like, what could it visually, like what could it translate emotionally on screen when we just think of images. And I think I was really lucky, because like somebody's dad, I think has been like a great like capturer of moments, and like through ages, like I think he captured your family kind of growing up, and I think that formed the basis of like a backbone that sort of like allows, with just some amount of simplicity, to tell this story, for the first film especially. And I think that with kind of the decision to recreate some of like these dream-like portraits of Indian families in this surreal landscape, there was a lot of inspiration from just the space itself, which is I don't know how many people are familiar, but like it's this place is where we shot it is called Salt and Sea, and it's also called Bombay Beach, the town that we filmed in. And there's like a lot of theories about how the name even came about. So for us, there was like a lot of things about kind of reclaiming some of those identities that we were, often like Bombay is like, often exoticized, I feel, in media, where it's used as a certain tool. So we wanted to kind of like take some of those back and choose that landscape, which is sort of which had there was a natural disaster that happened there, which kind of results in like the way the water looks even today. And we wanted to sort of take that and just explore the entire feeling of displacement and like of leaving and departures for the most part.
Can you imagine making music? Okay, so a few people asked about the songs we had written kind of throughout the pandemic, and I just want to say that there are a couple songs, I believe, on the record that were songs that we had written in that what we called Song a Day kind of pandemic writing style. And then the rest of them may emerge somewhere down the road for us. We never know. We have a lot of music that we've written that we haven't found a home for yet on a record, but who knows? You know, it could be the next one. It could be 5 records from now. Hopefully, we're doing this for a long time, and those songs will see the light of day, and some may never see the light of day until we're old and gray, and we just say, who cares? Let's put them out or something.
Yeah, Guardian Angel, which is, you know, the last track on the first act, was a song that I wrote, I think, in the early Mirror Master era, and it didn't really fit there. There's a song in the last act. There are a few songs that kind of come from different places, but you know, for every song that's been released, like our whole discography of Young the Giant, that's probably like 10% of what we've actually written. And so, you know, we are working on that internally, also just trying to be like, you know, what is being precious and what is worth sharing, and we will figure that out internally at some point, and we'll maybe release some things at some point.
So a lot of people ask, when's Mexico? I don't think we've set an exact date, but we are absolutely coming back to Mexico. Come to Brazil. We will definitely come to Brazil. Let's see.
Yeah, for those people, like, I mean, the people who are here, I mean, we have some special performances this year, and that's for a couple of reasons, personal reasons, and etc. But next year we intend on touring, most definitely next summer. We're going to try and go everywhere. So we'll see you.
Okay, some people are asking about some side projects, solo wise and Coma Culture wise. There's music in the works, etc. Anytime I have enough brain power, I like to sit alone and write stuff, and then Coma Culture will probably do something else in the future. Favorite Bollywood film for you guys?
You know, I was just I mean, Lagan for me is one that's still that. Dil Chahta Hai is like, you know, classic.
Dil Chahta Hai is like classic.
And then I was just telling Tanmay about RRR. Wait, he told me about it, and then I'd heard other people telling me about it. I finally watched it. It's a Telugu film that they've adapted into Hindi and it's now on Netflix. So people want to watch that. It's pretty cool. It's still very Bollywood, very dramatic, but tells a really cool story.
That's RRR, like the letter RR.
RRR. Okay, how about you?
I think that the 1950s, especially like it was like the golden age of Bollywood, and I think some of the films that sort of came out in that era, like Guru Dutt's films called like Pyasa and like Kagaz Ke Phool, I think those films were, I think, still for me, like they hold like they are the classics, and I think that Bollywood like shown really like well, and there's like an earnestness to those films, and there's also a lot of like drama, and like a lot about the culture also comes out through the way they express. So I still like the old films, I think.
True film junkie.
Okay, let's see what we got. We got Aaron Baber asked, how did your family feel about the home videos? I don't know if that's too personal. Love the editing on those and how they impact the narrative of the video.
That's a good question. I was a little hesitant at first. I had digitized a bunch of home videos during COVID because I had a bunch of free time, and I had no intention of using them really we had the 10-year documentary, and there was little snippets of that, but I was a little nervous, like, because it is personal. It's our story, and it's really their story. I mean, so much of American Bollywood is my parents' story, my grandparents' story, and I obviously wanted to get their blessings on it. So I showed them one of the most final cuts, and I was hoping that they'd be into it, and they loved it. They're very moved, and I think they just, you know, it's great for someone to tell their story, and that's what my purpose is on this record is to do that, and I'm happy.
All right, influence. Tonyo MG said influences ? Million question marks, and a few people asked about influences.
We're actually probably going to release like a little Spotify playlist of a lot of the songs that we had been actively circulating with our producer John Hill and with ourselves, that were kind of telling this story, and a lot of them are American, and a lot of them are like old school Bollywood things. And then one of the big um, flagship ones for me was a group called Corner Shop, which is they're from the UK, and they had that song called Brimful of Asha, which was like their big hit song. But that whole record in which that's on was really, really ahead of its time, and highly influential. And then there's a lot of some of the Fortet stuff he did. There's just incorporation of triplets and dole and Punjabi music was something that was a big part of this as well. So it kind of runs the gamut. We'll put that playlist out soon.
Oh, so some people brought up the fact that one of the songs that's on the third act actually came out on a video game, I think Major League Baseball. That song's called Dollar Store, and someone earlier asked if it's going to come out on the record, and it is. It's on the third act. So if anyone plays baseball video games, check it out.
That's the place you can hear it.
But it will be out. It'll come out in the third act, and that one's really fun. That one's spicy. Come to Chile. Did you have to learn any new instruments? Michael George, great name, asked multiple times. I mean, instrument wise, it was definitely like an exploration, and for me, it was an exploration in like trying to in some ways play the guitar in a way that had some Eastern influence, and also the exploration of like how the East meets West in like the 60s psychedelic movement, and just how the most famous example of maybe the Beatles going to India, and George Harrison playing the sitar, but then also a lot of Indian bands. I mean, a lot of the big hits, if you look into like big hits in India at the time in the 60s and such, a lot of them were like were Beatles songs, and I mean just like everywhere, but like a lot of these kind of influences merged with this kind of like almost surf rock style guitar, which I love and which Samir loves. And so it's kind of just this exploration. And I did buy a sitar guitar, which is essentially just like a cheat code for a sitar sound. I like anything that is in guitar form that sounds like other things. But and
there's
then
also like an element of like spaghetti western that is if you listen to bossa nova and early Bollywood music, and even like Sinatra and stuff that was happening, the Rat Pack, here there's like a lot of confluence of sound, and so Eric was that was something that he was already really experimenting with. He's also part Italian, so there's a lot of that influence there. And I think a part of it too is we collaborated with a couple of session players, but at the same time we wanted to take like this punk ethos with this record in a lot of ways, where even me, I'm like, my sister's actually classically trained in Hindustani, but I'm not. I just kind of like have my first inclinations with instruments, and that's usually how I deal with things in general. I'm like the worst with musical theory in the band for sure, and kind of an idiot savant in that way, I guess. But we took that same approach in some ways to these new instruments. And so I have the harmonium from my grandmother. It's old and broken, so we bought a new one, and we played it like we would like a synthesizer, and we played the dole like we would something else. And so we kind of took these instruments and played them the only way that was the most intent, like the thing that came up first for us. And that's kind of the ethos of this too, because it's not trying to be super Indian, it's not trying to be super, it's something in between. It's like this thing that we're trying to create.
Someone asked, Shannon Matuzowicz, sorry if I mispronounced the name.
Polish name.
How did you guys get that swing out in the ocean for the first scene in American Bollywood? That was so cool and serene at the same time, That's a good question.
Yeah,
Someone want to take that?
We didn't really put the swing there. Actually, there's it already exists. There's actually a friend of ours who, two people actually, Sippy and then and James, I think the two of them, they like put the whole thing up there a while back, and it exists, and people can go and see it.
Yeah, Bombay Beach is an interesting place of these amazing people who have ran away to create art, and in this barren landscape, and there are a lot of art installations everywhere, and there's this Biennale festival that happens, and that's actually how Tanmay introduced us to it, because he had been to one of those festivals, and it's kind of like the Burning Man's Burning Man. So I've never been, but there are just all sorts of really cool installations everywhere, and we were able to use those.
So, what's your preferred brand of body wash? Is there a release date for the full album? Can we say that? Is it releasing? Are we announcing that tonight?
I think know.
I think we might be announcing that tonight, so we'll just leave that to the metaverse. Are you going to post video document on the tracking in the studio sessions? Yeah, we'll have some stuff come out about the recording process, some pictures, some video.
It's a lot of us in masks.
Let's see. Someone asked if we felt any restraint in the past with our record label. I can't help but feel like this is what you wanted to do back in Home of the Strange, but I might be wrong. That's a good question.
It's a good question. I think, our previous team, they never really coerced us to, like, in a traditional sense. Like, they didn't tell us to do our hair a certain way. They didn't tell us to write a certain thing. But when you're a part of a system that has a storied tradition of this kind of force, you don't really have to say anything. It's kind of like implied, and some of that's on us, as some of it is like an internal pressure that we put on ourselves, and a different concept of what it is to be an artist. And I think this most definitely, there's a lot of the storytelling of this record that is really about also coming back to the throne, which is, for us, it's just coming back to our identity, really. And I think there's obviously some subconscious connection there, but it's not like as, cut and dry as just saying that they were like this. That's, that would be rewriting history.
Yeah, I think it really is about kind of finding our voice as we get older, and I think being part of the major record label system at like age 19, 20 years old, there's a lot of kind of growing up still to be done and learning. And when you're younger, I think it's harder to fully have like this like grounded conviction in knowing what your guiding light is musically and everything. And so it was kind of just navigating that throughout our career as young people, and we're grateful for where it's led us now to be able to have our own label, to be able to create whatever, whenever, and just feel this kind of freedom in our, in that kind of finding, not necessarily landing anywhere, because there's still so much to learn and grow into, but it's really just, we feel in our prime right now, and very excited. Do you guys want to read any of these questions?
What time is it right now?
It's okay.
Well, I think we could probably wrap these up in like 5 minutes, so we can take like 3-4 more questions.
Okay, let's see. Some people asked about you being a father and how that's affected just your songwriting, or inspired your songwriting. And
totally. Yeah, it's a great question. I think, when you have a child, you think about what are the things that you want to have them carry on, and what are the things that you want to like let die that they don't need to carry. And so for me, it was kind of like, also, my son and sons are multiracial, and so they will not be from any specific place either. And so to have them know this story, this part of where they come from and their story of their grandparents and their great grandparents was something that was important to me, and the sacrifices that my family has made, and that all of our families as immigrants to provide for us this life of relative comfort, of comfort for sure. And I think people, think of suburbia as this place of homogeneity, but for us, it was just a landing point. It was the touchdown for a lot of our families, generational long strife and fighting to find peace, and then we grew up in that peaceful place. And so yeah, I mean, it most definitely was like, I need to tell this. I need to tell this to him, and so that was a big part of it.
Let's see. There's a couple more here. We'll do 2 more. Let's see if I could find some good ones. Let's see. This is a good question. What is something that hasn't been asked that you've been excited to share with us about? That's terrible.
That hasn't been asked.
This is the best Young the Giant album ever written to this point. Let's change it up. Let's go somewhere else. Tour dates. We're going to be touring this fall, next year as well. We are excited for tour. A lot of people asked about the Indus Valley and Wake Up lyrics, and if they were autobiographical.
Yeah, I mean, so the Indus Valley is, a big cradle of civilization. There's a lot of modern philosophy that's come there. Even there's so much that's happened, and now the Indus Valley is in ruins. It's somewhere in the Middle East, and it's just where the story begins. It's where I envisioned Vyasa. It's where I envisioned even though it's not necessarily quite there, but it represents the cradle of humanity, and this melting pot of ideas. It's not necessarily autobiographical, but just kind of like the storyline of this place that has been long forgotten. Like many places, the places that humans really first came about are the ones that are the most destroyed, and so it was just something that I figured was worth talking about.
Each act is 4 songs, Samuel.
Yes.
Okay. Maybe one more. Let's find a good one to tie this up here. There will be vinyl. I love this Q&A. Thank you. Any symbology behind the colors that we wore? Okay, I'm trying to... Favorite venue? Red Rocks, maybe? Which act are we most excited about?
I'm pretty excited for Act 3. I think I'm excited for all, actually. I mean, Act 1 has been in our minds for a long time because it's the first thing we're releasing, but I'm excited to get 2, 3, 4 out there, and 4 is the newest to us because we're literally finishing this in real time. Like, we're getting final mixes, we're mastering, we're making final end notes to the record currently. So I'd imagine that's like the thing that is the newest and scariest to us will be the thing that's most exciting. But thank you everyone for being a part of this.
Thank you.
Once again, this is Tanmay, who is the vision of this.
Thank
Eric and me, Samir, and this is just the beginning of this story and the videos that are going to come out, the film. That's a big part of this and the rest of the acts. So we hope you guys tune in, and we will do this again for the next film premiere.
Absolutely. Thank you all.